I should probably do this as like chapter 1 because I might.
You might what?
I might have more of these. So this is my first wave.
What?
I might have 30. I might have 30 predictions.
Games?
No,
Conference
these are
titles,
like things that are going to
games?
happen
Okay.
this year.
All right.
These are going to happen. So number 5, the ACC will not be able to keep the focus on the field. They're going to have 2, maybe 3 or 4 really good teams this year in the ACC, but 2 of them apparently want to leave the league, and so constantly it's going to be, oh look, that's going to follow them around all year, even though nothing can happen until later. But I think it's going to be hard for them to keep the focus on the field unless Clemson, Florida State, and other teams are just really, really good. And even then, and I will give you the Pac-12 last year was a really good league, and even then, the focus on a lot of what was going on was not what was going on the field, which was a really good season and will be probably a really good season for them this year in their last one. The ACC might have this same problem.
Can I say something? Let me
go ahead.
I think the only team in the ACC that might have any kind of they're good. They're really good. I've told you, I think Florida State could play for the title. They're the ones, to me, if there's any distraction. I don't think Clemson's got a distraction, or Miami, or North Carolina. Florida State's the one that went out there and got on top of the highest mountain and said this is what they want. To me, it might be, especially if they don't win early, like LSU early, which of course would not be that'd be a tough loss because it's a great game. I think they're the ones that would be distracted.
If they're 0-2 versus Tigers in the first month, yes, it's going to be really bad for them.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with him in that I don't think it's really that big of a deal for anybody so long as you're winning games. I mean, I guess if you're Clemson and all of a sudden you're like 2-4, which is not going to happen, and your season's pretty much lost, then maybe you start to turn your focus towards other things that are more entertaining or more optimistic down the line. But I don't know, man. I think early on everybody's going to be focused on football. And when you've got a couple of teams in particular that are appearing like they're going to be pretty good, I think that's where it'll lie. Now, granted, during a Florida State broadcast, them in particular, will it be brought up perhaps? Sure, but as long as Jordan Travis is doing his thing, then the end of the game, all Sports Center is going to be talking about is them winning or losing. So there'd have to be some more heat. Like if I'm the ACC, I'm stamping out this Cal rumor, and I'm getting all that lined up before next week and getting that done with. So, if you don't want it to be about that, then stamp out the rumors. If you do want it to be about that, then sure, throw some fire at SMU and Cal and whatever mutant, conference you're trying to put together. But I think at least early on, the focus, especially for the better schools, is going to be on just winning. But if you get sidetracked, then sure, you could start to hear that pop up on occasion.
Yep. Number 4. Oregon State ruined someone's Pac-12 title hopes. And maybe, look, with DJU, I'm not putting it outside the realm of possibility that they play for the thing.
I agree.
I think that Jonathan Smith's got a good thing going. I think that them and Washington State are going to have a huge chip on your shoulder playing against the 8 teams that left when they do. Plus, I just really like Jonathan Smith. I think he's a really good coach. And they had a team that was pretty lethal last year at times, and they didn't have a guy who was the former number 1 overall recruit who's probably just wasn't playing in the right system for him. I think DJU has a great year. I think Oregon State has a great year. And at the very least, there's going to be someone who late in the year thinks we are in the driver's seat and the Beavs take them out.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. They're going to be really good. I'm excited about, A.J. Stewart coming over from that staff for Baylor to see what he does with the running backs this year. I've been really impressed by just watching him out on the field. But, he was a part of what they were able to get done last year, and I think they'll just keep on keeping on. And there's a lot of excitement, and there was before all the Pac-12 stuff, but now especially they're kind of like that team that everybody's going to probably be rooting for to really do exactly this, ruin somebody's Pac-12 hopes. If it's USC, even better. If it's some Oregon, even better. But yeah, they're certainly capable, and that's a good team that hopefully a lot of people watch this year.
Number 3, Texas A&M will be just good enough to cool Jimbo's seat.
I get that.
Because, and I say this only because I know the history of this program all too well. When everyone thinks that it's going to be bad, Jimbo and Bobby Petrino won't get along. This is bound to fail. A&M will be just good enough for people to go, oh, look what's going on. There they are. And then in 2024, people are like, oh, there's A&M. Maybe finally we'll be able to win the SEC West. And then we're back again on the hamster wheel of what they do when this year they will be I would think they have to be improved because as much as you can dog Jimbo Fisher, he's not a 5-7 coach year in, year out. He had a bad year, and we'll see. But they might find their way back onto the 8-4 train again, and then people go, "Oh, well, they've improved." Well, then they could be 10-2 in 2024 and contend in 25. I just know too much, but I think they'll be just good enough because people think they're not going to be good to where Jimbo's seat will cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll win enough games to cool it off. I also think that there's going to be more reason to fire him starting next year if he can't beat Texas on a regular basis or if he can't beat Oklahoma. So, yeah, I don't think now's the time to really upend and pay this massive buyout and then go get some other coach who's basically just another Jimbo Fisher for all you know and upend everything when so much is about to change. And so to not get to that point of just moving into, another season with him, it would have to be pretty bad, and I just don't see how they're going to be that bad again. I just don't see how it's feasible that they will be a 5-7 football team again with all of the changes they've made and with the luxuries they have at their disposal. So, yeah, I mean, that would be shocking. It would be hella interesting if, they do go 5-7 because, man, the conversations that will come from that. But, yeah, I think that they'll be good enough, like you said, to just move on into another year in that contract.
And I'll say this. 8-4 in 2024, but 0-1 of those is against Texas at home.
Exactly.
Will feel like 5-7 in College Station.
Yeah, I mean the stakes are only going to get higher moving forward because of that game, and then to a lesser extent Oklahoma. Absolutely.
A&M fans don't want to see a buyout. They'll find there's people who write the checks, but they can't afford any kind of neutral or worse. Not this year.
No, and then afford is emotionally afford, is program building afford. Afford, A&M can afford everything. That's not an issue. Number 2, someone unexpected beats Georgia. And they've got one of their easier schedules, but I do think that and they're going to be a really good team again. But what they're trying to do just doesn't happen. And it hasn't happened since Minnesota in the 30s. The 30s, when football was really, really different than it is now. And the systems were really, really different. And they almost lost to Mizzou last year. That was their dud game. I think that their dud game this year gets them, whoever that is. And I'm not talking about against Tennessee. I just think that, and this is kind of just a wild prediction on someone weird on their schedule is going to catch them on the right week and put a little pimple on their back. It may not matter when it comes to Georgia, but I just think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, history says it probably will because no one's done what they're trying to do. But, man, it's hard to see it on that schedule. That schedule sucks, man. Yeah. They don't play a top 25. Now, granted, they might play a top 25 team by the end of the first month because the top 25 is going to change. But on paper, they don't play a top 25 team but twice, and it's not until November when Ole Miss and Tennessee roll around. Mm-hmm. That's it. So, yeah, Kentucky might be better. They might be in the top 25 at some point. Auburn, with Hugh Freeze, I could see. Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I'm not putting money on it because on paper it doesn't look like there's a snowball's chance in hell of happening. But
every time we think there's a team in college football that is unbeatable, they lose.
Yeah.
And the reason I said someone and not Auburn will, because I don't know.
Right.
But it's just how if you look at everybody who's had a great run, about half of those great runs don't end against the big rival. The Florida run that they're about to have the documentary about ended when Nick Saban's run started. So Nick Saban ended Urban Meyer's run at Florida. But most of them are, the thing is really this team lost to Maryland. And then after that, it was kind of they were swimming upstream after that.
Yeah, and I'm looking for, I totally get where you're coming from. It's just hard to see it because they've been so good. But then again, you are changing quarterbacks. You are losing a lot of NFL talent, and you can replant the seeds all you want to. At some point, that does catch, you don't just never skip a beat ever. And so, yeah, maybe they skip a beat on the wrong weekend against Kentucky or something and lose a close game because something wild happens. That's certainly possible, and that would obviously be massive news. By the way, on that Florida documentary, I haven't seen it. I'm waiting your review on it because I've seen some not so great reviews, much like the Johnny doc, where it got blown way out of proportion and turned out to just be okay when all was said and done. I'm kind of getting those same vibes based on a couple people that have seen it. They didn't go all in like you'd expect them to. So kind of disappointing that's sort of become the case for these Netflix documentaries.
It feels like on this particular one, they maybe made a trade for Urban Meyer, which was we'll
it's
get
not
Urban
nearly as
Meyer.
interesting.
Yeah,
it's not nearly as interesting to get his phony perspective on like the scandalous stuff that was actually. That's the sell. It's not hearing from Urban BS and lies some more. Oh, come on, man, that's garbage.
So, all right.
If that was the case, if that's what they traded off for,
Number 1. This is the one that will get probably most. I'm going to say right now, Michigan wins the whole thing. Best offensive line, defensive line combo in the country. Most returning. They've got some transfers in there. They've got Blake Corum coming back. They've got Donovan Edwards coming back. More importantly, they've got J.J. McCarthy ready to go off to the NFL after this year, who's the best quarterback they've had in a very, very long time, with another year under his belt. I don't think the Harbaugh suspension will matter because it's 3 games that they're going to win anyway. Hell, Harbaugh could play quarterback for them in those 3 games instead of being suspended at 58 or 9 years old, however he is, and they would still probably win those games. And I think Michigan wins it all. I don't know. I'm not saying over who, but I think what they've got going on and Jim Harbaugh has this year, plus he'll come out of that suspension with a gigantic chip on his shoulder. He's already kind of crazy anyway. I think Michigan wins the whole thing.
I think you're giving not enough respect to East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green.
Maybe not.
Yeah, that's not missing out on much. But, hey, I mean, sure. I mean, I could see it. Others have predicted it, I'm sure, elsewhere. And they're as good of a choice as anybody not named Georgia, for that matter. So, yeah, I mean, they were just, a couple plays from beating TCU in the semis. As bad as they had, some moments in that game that really could have gotten ugly. I mean, they still fought and scratched, and that turned out to be a highly competitive game that they nearly won anyways. So, yeah, they were close to appearing, and with all they've got coming back, as you pointed out, wouldn't be surprised. Would Harbaugh win the title and then go to the NFL, and we would finally get rid of those rumors for once and for all, or what?
Yeah,
but, I mean, that'd be fascinating to see because it hasn't happened in 23 years. 26 years, right? Since they won the title in 97, Michigan.
One half of it, yeah.
Shared it with Nebraska. So, yeah, that would be interesting. And it would be kind of honestly, just a nice change of pace from what we've seen for a while now with kind of the usual suspects.
Yeah, by the way, retired stockbroker to you on the chat room, Smoky.
I know.
Now my